Namaste everyone and welcome back to LiveStronger. Today we are going to work on our leg strength. We are going to hit some squats, do some curls and get going. To start off with, I'm going to start with the greatest stretch. As usual, 5 repetitions on each side, making sure I unlock the mobility of my body. Make sure you give this couple of minutes every day pre-workout. You perform these dynamic stretches. Yes, of course, you can choose to do a little bit of cardio, just 5 minutes. Anything more than that, I don't see the benefits, but 5 minutes of stairmaster, elliptical, or cycling is good enough. But make sure you do your dynamic stretches to ensure that your entire body is properly primed up for the exercises. I'm finishing off with the deep squat, our mandatory everyday deep squat, post which I move into our mobility drill, basically the hip openers, using a kettlebell for weight and putting a little bit of pressure on the stretch, inner thighs. Make sure you squeeze your glutes while performing this stretch to get all the benefits out of it. Because if you don't squeeze your glutes, your hips might shift a little bit. Squeezing your glutes keeps your hip straight and gives you that extra bit of stretch in your inner thighs. One of my favorite exercises to make sure that my hips and my inner thighs are properly unlocked for my squats, especially from the time I have been feeling a little bit of stiffness in my left IT band. I make sure my mobility is top notch before I start off with the exercises. So let's begin with our warm up for squats. Empty barbell, 15 repetitions, 2 times with 45 seconds break in between. What I have done is during the warm up, I have also done a couple of pause squats. Basically, I go into a as deep as possible in my squat stance and then pause there for 3 to 4 seconds and then come back up while breathing absolutely normally. Remember, when you're doing pause squat, you wouldn't be able to hold your breath. So just breathe normally and try to control your core and then get back up as straight as possible. If you're still unable to perform a squat with a barbell, just perform it without any weight, but make sure you get those 2 sets with 15 repetitions. So let's begin with our working sets. Now I have done 5 sets of these with up 8 to 10 repetitions, varying each set with 60 to 90 seconds break in between. Remember, for squats, the cues are very simple. You need to make sure the bar sits properly on your upper traps, and once the bar is off the rack, you need to brace your core. Brace your core as if someone is going to punch you in your stomach and then go down. For before bracing, make sure you take a deep big breath into your stomach, full breath. Now I prefer doing squats without the belt because the weight is not challenging enough or requires for me to use a belt to make sure my abdominal pressure stays in such a way that my spinal cord stays in a neutral position. But you may use the help of a belt to create that pressure all over. Even if you're wearing a belt, make sure you take that deep big breath to push your stomach into the belt, making it a tight fit. The belt is not there to help you in terms of your back pain. The belt is just there to help you in terms of bracing. It's there to provide you that physical feedback of bracing. Now, for less amount of weight, you don't need to use a belt. You can definitely brace your core or practice bracing your core at least. As I mentioned, I have done 5 sets of these 8 to 10 repetitions and I was all out. By the time I reached my fourth and fifth set, I needed to take a longer break. That's up to 90 seconds of break. I try to keep my breaks as precise as possible to get the maximum out of my sets. For my last set, I did go a little bit narrow in my stance to get a little bit more quad activation because I was feeling a lot of hamstring and glutes. So maybe that's because of the recent leg workout, which I have done, wherein my glutes and my hamstrings were a lot more activated. I have done one extra set wherein I have tried to go in a weighted deep squat with pause. So I went as deep as possible and I paused for a couple of seconds, for a couple of repetitions, just to check my range of motion and my stability at depth. It's just an experiment. You can try it, otherwise, you can totally skip that part. Now, for my next exercise, I started doing seated hamstring curls, 5 sets, 12 repetitions with 60 seconds break in between. And as usual, I started doing it first alternative leg, and then when my legs were tired, I switched to both legs at a time, basically like a drop set. Now, you may choose to start off with both the legs and then drop the weight later. I prefer it this way because initially it gives me a lot more activation in each and every leg. Because if you're moving from squats to a hamstring curl, your legs might be fatigued, your hamstrings would be tired. So, if there is any kind of instability or difference in between strength, you would not notice it. But if you're doing a single leg to start off with, alternative leg, one leg at a time, you would notice that difference, and that will help you understand the strength difference in between your legs if there is any. But yes, once you're completely fatigued and unable to perform the reps one leg at a time, switch into two legs at a time like a drop set. Make sure you take a weight which is challenging for one leg also. The curls should feel challenging enough. Now, this time I try to lean back as much as possible to get the maximum amount of contractions in my hamstrings. You may choose to lean a little bit forward. That absolutely fine. Doesn't really affect your curls. You What you need to do is just to make sure that you're always in contact with the seat. If you don't have a seated hamstring curl, you may perform it on a lying hamstring curl. But if you have both of them, I would suggest go for the seated hamstring curl. Gives me a better activation always. Lying down, I tend to over activate my glutes and my lower back, so I prefer the seated one. Keeps my back locked in and my glutes less involved. Even though they get a lot of activation during this exercise, if you're letting your hamstrings stretch all the way out and then curling them as strongly as possible. Now, post the hamstring curls, I moved on to a little bit of forearm work, basically wrist curls with a weighted barbell behind my back, and started curling it with my wrist. Now, when you're curling it, make sure you prepare yourself to get your pinky finger into your inner forearm. That way, you would create a maximum amount of contraction. So, if you're just curling it, you might not be able to get it. But if you try to focus on getting your small little finger all the way into your inner forearm, which is not anatomically possible, maybe possible for few people, not possible for me, you get the maximum amount of contraction. And that's it for today. I was a bit tired with my daily work, so I kept my workout a bit short, took it a little bit easy, but made sure I got maximum number of repetitions out of every exercise. I continue with my static stretching, 20 seconds hold for my quadriceps and hamstrings. The regular stretches, nothing out of the ordinary. Just take your foot, put it behind you. You can hold it with your hands, or like me, take a support of the barbell on a Smith machine and just get straight as possible. Basically, stretching both the points where your quadriceps originate and insert, your hip and your knee. Holding 20 seconds is vital during static stretches. Now I move on to my hamstring stretches. Again, just raise the bar a little bit, put the leg up on it, and that's as simple as that. Make sure you hold your stretches. Every stretch, you hold it for 15 to 20 seconds. 20 seconds would be ideal. More than that is not particularly required. If you want to, you can perform another set of stretches. So you can do it couple of times or 3 times with breaks in between. And that's it for today. If you did like this video, I know pretty short, please do drop a like. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I would definitely appreciate a sub. Any feedback in comments are also welcome. Thank you once again for joining me in this workout, and I'll see you in the next workout. Meanwhile, have a good day. I'll see you in the next video.